Hello, everybody. Well, nice to meet you all. So today, after a long session time, our Scott was on holiday. So we have our Scott, the host, and myself. So I'm Sanjivana. We do many podcasts also, and I'm a meditation teacher. So, Scott had been on a wonderful journey. So, I'm also really curious about it. And so, we can get lots of tips and ideas of it. So, first of all, we would like to invite Scott. Scott, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Scott Berdell, and I have been on a journey. I guess I would say I'm more inclined to call it a journey than a vacation. Just because I don't want to admit that being on a vacation for that long sounds a bit indulgent. I don't fancy that I'm that indulgent. But it was a journey, and it was very impactful on me and everything about me, my life, and the way I think about things. And now I'm back in the United States, and it's very interesting because the political climate has changed dramatically since I left too.
Mhm.
But again, I'm back, and I'm thrilled to death to be talking to Sanji and whoever else will be joining us on this lovely little video podcast
Mhm. So, how are
today.
you, Scott?
I'm okay. I'm well. It's I think I've been experiencing something that I hear some people refer to as reverse culture shock, and that kind of refers to the difficulty with reintegrating yourself back into your original society once you've left.
Mhm.
I'll my trip was to Vietnam, and Vietnam is very obviously, I don't want to state the obvious. Vietnam is not the United States, and it's
One of
and
the most
Southeast Asia is
beautiful
very
countries,
different.
no, in the world.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is very beautiful. Um, it's extremely beautiful,
Mhm.
and it's nice because it's a thin strip of country that largely is along the Southeast China Sea, and
Mhm.
but you see a lot of different things in it from north to south.
Mhm.
And I did spend a lot of time up north, but what I saw, I did think is beautiful country.
Mhm.
Especially, it's very beautiful. And I don't want to say despite, but Vietnam has a lot of people. There's nearly 100 million people there, so
100 million. Mhm.
uh,
And they say the people are also very nice, no? Like very good people, right?
very nice,
Very
very
friendly and
charming,
kind, no?
very kind, very loving. About every 3 or 4 days, I would get a massage or a shave. I like getting a shave,
Uh-huh.
and getting a shave. It was so nice. The people are so kind, and getting a shave is something that's very it's a very personal thing.
Personal, no?
Having someone touch your face.
Mm.
But just the kindness and the gentleness of their touch every time, whether it was massage or a shave, or just in your day-to-day dealings. I was so continuously. I don't want to say surprised or impressed,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just true. They're just such gentle, loving people.
Uh-huh. So I have a
Mm.
bunch of questions for you, Scott. Eh? So
Okay.
I'm also really curious, and I also want to go. What you said, and then so I made a lineup of questions. Actually, it's from the very beginning, and to cover,
Yes.
and I'm surely like it will be helpful for people who would like to travel and see how it is. Like even myself, no, and even other people. So like a travel guide also, no, and
Yes.
so if it's okay, I ask you these questions, right?
Shoot. Yeah. Shoot. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Ask questions.
Okay, yeah, so so it's from like the preparation time. So
Yeah.
what made you first the decision to speak like this country?
Why did I choose this country?
Yeah, yeah, specifically.
Well, there's there are a couple reasons there. One, I do have a interest in the French world,
Uh-huh.
like things from France, and I was aware of there being a large influence of French culture on Vietnam,
Uh-huh.
and that was because of French colonialism.
Yeah, no, there was some time.
So pretty much from 1880 to 1945.
Uh-huh.
Uh, the French inhabited Vietnam. Back then, it was called French Indochina,
Uh-huh.
and I've been close to French culture because I did live in Quebec for 20 years, but
Uh-huh.
also the woman I spent a lot of time with, and who's also the mother of my children,
Mhm.
is French, and my children are French, and so I wanted to see that intersection of French culture and Southeast Asian culture
Mhm.
after, and it's not new. This is after it's had since 1880 over 100, say 140 years of bubbling and brewing and stirring up, and now you
Mhm.
have this mix of culture
Mhm.
that is a true a melange. It's a true mix of two different things, and I really wanted to see that. And
Mhm.
also, there are a lot of people um, who are Vietnamese fans. One guy in particular, his name is Anthony Bourdain.
Uh-huh.
He's no Anthony Bourdain is no longer with us, but he was kind of a food guy who traveled and liked to talk
Mhm.
about food and traveling and eating, and he always claimed that Vietnam was his favorite spot.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh. So, how did you organize it, Scott?
That's a great question, Sanji, because I it's a trip that I've been thinking about and did a little bit of research. My I was given a gift by my mother of a Vietnam travel book around Christmas,
Uh-huh.
and but it's a trip that again that I've been thinking about. So I'd done a little bit of online research.
Oh.
I think the best research for stuff like this is actually talking to people from the country, especially people who are not just living in Vietnam, but Vietnamese who've lived there for a long time.
Mhm.
So anytime you have the chance to meet someone from Vietnam, say hi. Fascinating. You're from Vietnam. Can you tell me about it? Can you tell me about the country? Can you recommend some places for me to go to?
Mhm.
And so between the occasional interaction with different people and doing online research and the books that people give, and there are always travel books here and there
Mhm.
that you can pick up at uh, like Airbnbs will have a lot of travel books that people
Mhm.
just leave and give away. Um, or there's always a lovely half price bookstore just down the street, for
Uh-huh.
used books.
Uh-huh.
And and that's the way you do it. So, you just kind of start taking a deep dive, and if there's something that interests you, you do a little bit of research in that area.
Mhm.
I felt that I wanted to spend a lot of time on the coast, so I kind of focused my search efforts on coastal places in Vietnam. Oh,
Mhm.
and also, you know, uh, uh, places that have because the French were in Vietnam from 1880 to 1945.
Mhm.
So I wanted to see towns and areas that still had a lot of old architecture and
Uh-huh.
stuff like that.
Uh-huh. Okay, wonderful. Eh?
Yes.
So, what kind of budget did you assume?
Oh,
Just
I
just some gross figure.
Yeah, I was given because a large part of this trip was a gift from a family member,
Uh-huh.
and he presented me with $5,000 US,
Uh-huh.
and I think uh, eh, he said he wanted me to take 1 month out of the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and so with that figure, you have to take into consideration your travel time, which, depending on where you go, might be your biggest cost,
The flight, you
and
mean the flight,
the flight.
the return ticket
Exactly.
and everything, right?
Uh,
Uh-huh.
that's one thing you have to start looking at right away is um, your travel costs to and from the
Uh-huh.
spot. And once you figure that out, then you start looking at places like hotels
Uh-huh.
or hostels, Airbnbs. There are a lot of places, uh, and I actually recommend going to places, websites that specialize
Mm-hmm.
in Asian locations, not just. I don't necessarily think Airbnb or um, Expedia is the best idea for these. But I did choose Vietnam also with that budget in mind because from what I hear, Vietnam is a good value trip.
Mm-hmm. So it must
Hmm.
have taken like maybe like $2,000 for a return air ticket from US to Vietnam.
Almost,
Almost.
I think if you actually plan it in advance, I bought my ticket with 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I do not recommend my means of preparation. I think on a trip of that nature, you want to take a month. And I bought my ticket. Ended up costing me about 1,700 US.
Also, I didn't.
If I planned it 4 to 6 weeks before that,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been $400 to $500 less for sure.
Oh, really?
Just
Uh-huh.
a ticket. Yeah.
Why is that reason?
Um, I think that's just standard pricing policy for airlines.
Uh-huh.
They like to fill up their planes as soon as possible,
Uh-huh.
and then if they fill up quickly, then the remaining seats they can charge people more money for,
Ah, okay,
make
okay.
more money for
Uh-huh.
them.
Okay,
That's the
okay.
only thing I can imagine.
So, Scott, like within this five
Yeah.
thousand dollars, you covered the whole monthly journey.
Oh, yeah, I did it in less than 5,000,
Oh, that's that.
honestly. I mean, I even allowed a little bit of indulgence on the
Mm-hmm.
5,000. I think I did the whole thing um, because 17. I think my lodging never was about was around $1,000, not
Mm-hmm.
over.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
In
just last.
Vietnam, paying
Uh-huh.
25 dollars a night for a spot. You can get a very, very nice spot in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything. That's not, 20 dollars is, you can get a fantastic hostel for $20 to $25 a night in Vietnam.
We will ask about the accommodation next in another
Mhm.
question. Just like then people because everything like nowadays like money is the main thing. No, like you cannot just say like hop into a plane and just go right. You need to
No.
purchase the tickets and you have to be prepared. No, and everything. So if a person has an idea, so as a guideline, we are trying to help people just to like organize things. And it's good like you give tips like this, like organize like 1 month ahead and then even
Yeah.
the prices are more reasonable, no, or cheaper even.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I do. Like I said, in order to get some of the prices a little bit more reasonable, it's a good idea to plan ahead. I mean, I did not plan my entire trip, though.
Mhm.
Because I was one traveling alone, and that's kind of
Uh-huh.
a big deal.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't want. Um, to spend 2 days in one city, then 2 days in another city, and then 2 days in another city.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to get involved. Get involved isn't necessarily the right word.
Or blend
I
in?
really wanted to meet people,
Okay.
local people.
Uh-huh.
Um, I didn't want to hang out with Westerners or tourists that much, and I
Mm-hmm.
did sometimes because
Mm-hmm.
locals don't stay in hostels, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, but I did. Uh, my first stop was in a city called Hue. It's
Mm-hmm.
spelled Hue. It's an old city. It's the last location for the indigenous ruling class of Vietnam. Is
Mm-hmm.
where their last palace was,
Uh-huh.
and there's also a lot of older French architecture from the French colonial days in a way.
Uh-huh.
And I really wanted to just kind of hang out there because I've also read that the food there is really really great.
Ah, good.
And this was, before I left, I was very anxious. I wanted to have everything planned and everything
Mm-hmm.
nailed down. But sometimes it's a good idea to listen to the wisdom of our youth. My son said, "Hey, why don't you just plan the first couple weeks, and then while you're there, after you meet people, you can plan the last part of your trip." So that's
Oh.
kind of why I did it.
Uh-huh.
You know, I locked in my first 2 weeks in a location in a spot that I thought I would like. Spent that 2 weeks there, meeting people, talking to people about other places to go,
Mm-hmm.
and places that they recommend, and that was a fantastic way to do it,
Mm-hmm.
because just looking online and looking at books. I like books, but pretty much by the time they're printed, books are outdated these days.
Uh-huh.
And and online is weird. I don't know if you can always trust your online sources.
Oh, really?
Well, you want to,
Uh-huh.
but with things like traveling, I mean, if they're trusted sources, of course you can trust
Mm-hmm.
them. But um, I don't know why I'm so skeptical there.
Mm-hmm. So, Scott, like if you
If you
hire
have
like
kind of,
a travel agency, the cost is much more higher, right?
yeah, but it might be a better deal sometimes.
A deal?
I think,
Mm-hmm.
um, because when you're traveling in Vietnam, a lot of your travel is going to be on buses. They have sleeper buses.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have them in? I know they have them in India. Do they have them in
Mm-hmm.
Sri Lanka, or are you familiar with these things?
Yeah, yeah. Some places like not very common. Like and even Myanmar had this. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay, and they're great. I mean, I like them. They're very civilized. You have your own little space with your curtain,
Uh-huh.
and then they're good about stopping every 3 to 4 hours to go to the bathroom. They're not bad at all. They're not. I mean, they're made for locals. They're not really long enough for
Oh.
a 6 foot Westerner to fully extend.
Uh-huh.
But that's okay.
Uh-huh.
Although I did have a stretch of one travel in which I spent 40 hours on sleeper buses, and
Sleeper
that was a
buses.
bit much.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we'll
And
get
that
to that,
kind of wore
Scott.
me out.
So
Huh?
we'll get to those things. For it's very
Okay.
interesting.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
The interior.
what did you take?
Um, yeah, well, I'm assuming you're talking about luggage, right?
Yeah, luggage, or other things,
Yeah,
medicines,
I
and
do.
all these things you needed.
I thought I did think about that a lot. Uh, I know that they textiles are big in Vietnam, right?
Uh-huh.
They make a lot of shoes, they make a lot of flip flops, they
Uh-huh.
make a lot of clothes. So I didn't pack a lot. I
Oh.
packed two backpacks. one that actually zip together. So I had
Mhm.
two backpacks that can zip together and can you can check them in as one.
Uh-huh.
Or I like that idea because I didn't have to check either. I could carry both onto the plane. The smaller backpack I shoved under my feet in the chair in front of me, and the bigger
Mhm.
backpack I put in the loft
Oh.
above my head.
So you took as hand luggage, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I didn't. I absolutely packed with the idea of buying clothes when I was there
Oh, okay.
because with two things that are big in Vietnam that are the markets.
Mm-hmm.
They have a very big market economy, which they sell everything.
Everything.
Whether it's clothes, shoes, food,
Mm-hmm.
hardware supplies. They sell everything,
Mm-hmm.
jewelry at markets. So I went there with the expectation of probably need to buy a new pair of flip flops, a couple shirts, and a couple shorts. But that also allowed me to travel with a lot lighter
Light.
because I didn't want to drag around a suitcase on wheels.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to be able to put something over my back and put something over my front and carry it
That's
on
all.
an as needed basis like that.
But surely like toiletries, some kind of medicines if needed.
Oh yeah, and that was did stuff for the possibility when you're going to a new country in a new part of the world.
Mm.
You need to prepare for the possibility of having stomach issues.
Uh-huh.
You're probably going to have diarrhea.
Uh-huh.
So pack whatever is going to help you there, whether it's Pepto Bismol or whatever's available in your particular country to address these issues, and um, mosquito repellents in case you're in
Oh.
an area that might have any diseases that are transmitted by mosquitoes.
Mm-hmm.
And I also did get some, malaria is a big concern there.
Malaria. Uh-huh.
And I did get Hep A and Hep B vaccines for myself before I left as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good idea to do your research to make
Yeah, no.
sure, just in case you might
Uh-huh.
need some vaccines.
Or you can get
Right.
the if needed medication from there also, right?
Yeah. And then that's another thing. I did see a clinic because I had a bad cough in Vietnam, and the clinic was fantastic and so much more. It was very quick, very reasonable. I went in, I made an appointment at noon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I saw the doctor, had an X-ray and three blood tests, and
Mm-hmm.
got my diagnosis and medicine within 2 hours.
Oh wow.
And it was
Uh-huh.
that cost me $100 US.
Uh-huh.
And the same thing anywhere in the US, that same procedure would have cost me, oh God, I don't know, four or $500 minimum.
Oh, okay. So
It
Scott,
would
do
have.
you need like something like travel insurance or medical insurance to travel like that?
I think it's a good idea.
Uh, i-
I think it's a very
did
good
you carry?
idea
I'm
to do
just
that.
asking. Did you need to
I
carry?
think it's a good idea. hmm
Uh,
I did because you honestly don't know what's going to happen, and travel insurance is not that expensive.
mm-hmm. And
I
Scott,
think
sorry. Yeah, please.
yes.
Yeah, no, no, please continue. Sorry.
I was just going to say I don't think it costs me more than $100 for the month that I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Travel insurance that covered emergency dental and health in case I needed something there.
And some countries they say like you need some specific amount of budget in your account, right, to travel.
hmm
So did that imply to you also?
Oh, I mean, I think that's a good idea for emergencies. And uh, well, here, it depends on how you plan your trip.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sorry, Scott.
Sorry,
Yeah, I'm
Scott.
just asking, like, as requirements. Sometimes they ask for requirements, right? And they say like for time period of like 6 months, this certain amount should be in your bank account, so that you won't
Oh,
become like a burden to that specific country, just in case.
yeah.
No? So did that imply
That
to you also?
no, no, that was not implied to me. Although, and I hadn't really heard that. I'm
Mhm.
not familiar with that.
Okay.
Although I know that, I might get the old age pass because
Mm-hmm.
I started my trip when I was 59, and I'm 60 now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that might be something that they'd be a little bit more concerned about really young people going over and staying for a long time and being a burden to their economics
Mm-hmm.
and their social structure. Whereas older people, they're going to look at me and like, he's going to be out of here in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Just let him go spend money and yeah,
Uh-huh.
tell him to get out of here. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I think I definitely got the old guy pass a couple times.
Uh-huh.
You know, they I don't think I looked like a troublemaker.
Uh-huh. Yeah, just because I saw some places like they ask this requirement, and specifically
Yeah.
they say like this amount, maybe $6,000 to $10,000 should be in your bank account, so that specifically they say this. So because if you're traveling and then something happens there, you always have like a reserve to use.
Yeah. No, it's a good idea for the countries themselves. It makes sense, especially if they're concerned about people overstaying their welcome.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay. So, yeah. And how did you structure it? Like I heard a bit of it, no? Even Sons told you like plan like 2 weeks
Mhm.
ahead, and then later do the 2 weeks, right? So,
Yeah.
but surely you must have had the structure. No, I'll do these things even for the 2 weeks. How did you plan it, Scott?
Yeah. Well, you mean for the 2 weeks that I planned or the 2 weeks that wasn't planned?
All in all, or like specifically like what you planned, and then what happened afterwards? What was your second plan for the next two
Yeah.
weeks?
I didn't, honestly. There's one thing that I planned before I left. There's one tour that I planned, and that was it was real simple because I did plan on eating a lot. I really didn't go with the intent of buying and preparing my meals when I was there.
Uh-huh.
I went with the intent of eating out, and so every and not just away the first city I was in, but every town or every city that I went to, I my first evening in that city, I would get a tour for it was called a street food tour
Uh-huh.
basically.
Uh-huh.
So I'd go with a tour guide, and we would stop at street food places, and they
Uh-huh.
weren't always carts on the street. Sometimes because Vietnam has this culture, everyone who has a home
Mhm.
on the street, basically their entrance room is is a place of commerce, whether it's
Uh-huh.
a garage to fix scooters, or
Mhm.
whether it's a restaurant. So
Uh-huh.
there are all these restaurants, and frequently they're not big restaurants. It's just big enough to seat 20 people, and the street tour guide will take you to 5 or 6 places
Mhm.
that they vetted, that they're familiar with, and that was always a great thing because not only do they show you the good places to go, and I mean, you don't just want food that tastes good. You want to go someplace where you know that the food's probably not going to make you sick.
See. Uh-huh.
And so going on these guides, they would always give me a list of good places and that are good, that taste good,
Mhm.
that don't cost a lot, and that aren't gonna, you aren't gonna get sick.
Uh-huh.
And that was a huge deal for me because you start to know the things to look for because on any trip, eating is a big part to that component, that trip,
Mhm.
and if you do get sick, that's gonna kill a day of your traveling, at least,
Mhm.
at least a day.
Mhm.
And so, planning in order to not lose is a good idea. And these street food tour guides were just fantastic
Uh-huh.
because you get to meet some locals. Um, they show you the cool local places to go, and it's just they're great because they're the places that the locals frequent too.
Uh-huh.
And and yeah, I just think that that was the best way to approach that.
Uh-huh. And I remember, Scott, you said like you wanted to see like ancient archaeology, more coastal area. So this was also a plan of yours, right?
Mhm.
So how did you
Yeah,
like arrange that? What was
I
like,
and
I go to such and such a place like that? There was an order or something like that?
yeah, you can yeah, you can always find these tour guides,
Mhm.
and those are great things. Um, I I I really wanted to spend as much time as I possibly could. I really wanted to see like the culture that was prominent in that area prior to the French moving in and prior to industrialized countries trying to resettle the whole Southeast Asia part.
Mhm.
There are people called the Champ, Champ, and sometimes you'd hear them called Champa, Champa.
Uh-huh.
And I really wanted to go, and I didn't make it to some of those areas. I did make it to a handful of um, some Buddhist monasteries and
Mhm.
Buddhist pagodas that were fantastic. Some,
Uh-huh.
made in the 1600s, and I thought that was great. Um, uh, and I'm disappointed that I didn't make it to see any of the Chomp areas.
Uh-huh.
I did. Anytime you go to a country, I don't know if a month is enough.
Mhm.
So you kind of make that compromise. And my compromise was I'm going to have to go back to Vietnam.
Uh-huh. So did he have like a plan? Like, okay, first I'll go to this city, then this city, maybe even the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, my plan was 2 weeks in a way,
Mhm.
and it was interesting because that particular city isn't necessarily on the top five choices for everyone.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and but I did just go. My plan was to get to Hawaii,
Mm.
and even like your first stop is going to be a big deal, especially if you're coming from.
Mhm.
Let me step back on that one.
Mhm.
Traveling South Asia from U.S. Is a big deal, not just in terms of cost, but in terms of time.
Mm.
And you're going to have to contend with jet lag,
Ah.
and that's something that
Mhm.
you got to prepare for, and you
Mhm.
really should. When you land in whatever country you're traveling to, you probably want to spend at least, I'd say, 2 days in the
Mhm.
in the city you're landing in,
Mhm.
because you do not want to have, you don't want to have to make a lot of decisions uh, that you're not mentally prepared to make or haven't really done the research to make
Mhm.
after you've been traveling for 24 hours,
Mhm.
because you're not going to make good decisions there. The first 2 or 3 days, like my first, I landed in Ho Chi Minh City,
Uh-huh.
And Ho Chi Minh City is a huge city. You have about 10 million people.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily the place where a lot of people are going to want to go to see what Vietnam really looks like.
Mhm.
But it is a big, beautiful Asian city with a lot of beautiful, amazing Asian Vietnamese people. But I did just take 2 days, just kind of relax
Mhm.
and get acclimated to being a new country before I went on to have other travels. I mean, and I like I said, I do recommend taking 2 days off right after a big trip like that, just to get
Mhm.
acclimated to the new time zone and a little bit acclimated to your new culture,
Uh-huh.
and then start your travels. But even I made my choice. I was going from Ho Chi Minh City to Hue, um, and I didn't plan a lot of that stuff in advance. I
Uh-huh.
planned a lot of it just off the seat of my pants. There's a website called Rome to Rio
Mhm.
or Rio to Rome, which is really good. You type in uh, your location and
Location.
your destination, and it will determine tickets that you have to buy.
Mhm.
And one like yeah, I was about to say one of the challenges of traveling in Vietnam, but I'll hold off on that. So you just go to a website and buy the tickets that you're going to need because traveling in new countries isn't always the same as traveling in your own country.
Mhm.
I mean, it's rare that everything's going to be the same, right? So you have to, so you have to have a good balance. I do recommend, as you say, planning some of this stuff in advance.
Mhm.
Go ahead and locking some things in advance, but then not everything, because you're always going to come up, you're always going to meet people, you're always going to find new and different things to do. So it's nice to have some space, some time
Mhm.
left aside in order to make time for those things to happen.
Mhm. Oh, wonderful. And you actually answered my next question was like how was the journey there? So surely like jet lag. And were there like many transit points, Scott?
It wasn't too bad, honestly. In Vietnam, you're either going to fly into Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City.
Mhm.
It's about a day of travel from the
Uh-huh.
U.S. I mean, even under, I think the fastest turn it's going to be, say, not including your travel time to the Western Coast. Say you leave from anywhere in California, it's still going to be, it's going to be about 19 hours.
Need to know. So
Um,
direct flight?
and yeah,
Okay.
so if you're flying with Cathay Pacific, you're going to be flying from like either LA or Seattle or
Mhm.
San Francisco to Hong Kong, and Hong Kong to Vietnam.
Mhm.
Or if you're on one of the Korean airlines, you're going to fly to somewhere in California to Seoul, South Korea.
Mhm.
Or but you're going to have at least one big stop.
Stop.
Whether it's going to be in Tokyo or Seoul or Hong Kong, and then Vietnam.
Uh-huh. So, but no delay, right? You same flight goes from there, right?
Oh, it was pretty. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty smooth. I mean, my layovers in Hong Kong were never more than 2 hours.
Uh-huh.
I think 2 hours is good. Because if you're a little bit late, you're not going to have to worry too much about missing your next, and you're not there for so long that you're just getting sick of the airport. You know,
Mm-hmm. Okay,
no matter
so
how big and nice
sorry.
airports are,
Uh-huh.
they can get boring after a little bit.
Uh-huh. So Scott, how was the accommodation? You said like about hostels and all. So from the
Yeah.
airport, what happened?
Oh,
Are there taxis you can
that's
take? And
that's a big thing. Yeah. You know, um, taxis are difficult, huh?
uh-huh.
Actually, no. That was where I got scammed twice on taxis, and it was very
Oh,
aggravating.
in the airport.
And there's just the but if you can get a hotel in the city you're landing in to
Mm-hmm.
pick you up, that's always going to be your best bet.
Uh-huh.
Each time I got a taxi to or from the airport, I was in a situation in which my luggage was in the trunk of a taxi,
Uh-huh.
and I couldn't get my luggage unless I gave him the money he wanted for the
Wanted.
ride. And each time,
Uh-huh.
like when I first landed, yeah, he overcharged me by like four times.
About him. Uh-huh.
Yeah, he this guy charged me 1.3 million dong for a taxi ride that should have only been 300,000 dong.
Uh-huh.
And that was aggravating. But no, yeah, you get a taxi from the airport to your hotel, and then that's going to be your 1 or 2 days of decompression after a long travel.
Mm-hmm.
And then just, I think the best thing to do after 24 hours in airports and airplanes is a big hot shower,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then start trying to get acclimated to your new time zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So time span of 2 hours was 2 days was totally fine,
Yeah,
no?
2 days. I think 2 days is good.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And the accommodation, did you pre-arrange it or when did you get it from when you went there?
Yeah. I prearranged my first 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
I got I think an app such as Booking, or there are 100 different apps you can find
Mm-hmm.
places to stay on.
Uh-huh.
Good Asian apps. There's one called Agoda, Agoda. That
Uh-huh.
was a good one. And and that's how I planned my first 2 weeks. And I did plan my hostel through an app online in a way, and
Mm-hmm.
I picked my hotel too. And even with those, you know, uh, you pick a place, you look at the pictures, and you read reviews. You have to read reviews.
Mm-hmm.
It's aggravating, I know, but
Mm-hmm.
and pay attention to reviews. I mean, that's just kind of way that world works right now.
Mm-hmm. So just tell about the hostel. How was it?
Yeah, the hostel, you
Was it
can
like
get
many?
great hostels
Yeah.
for really inexpensive, and I mean, you're not going to have a private bathroom,
Uh-huh.
you're not going to have a private shower or a private toilet,
Mm-hmm.
but that's fine. When you're picking a hostel, yeah, again, you want your reviews.
Mm-hmm.
I picked one that was a little bit expensive as far as hostels go,
Uh-huh.
but I think mine was maybe $15 US a night.
Uh-huh.
But one things you need with hostels, you want a private bed. I
Mm-hmm.
feel, and you want to be able to lock
Lock it.
um, your private space. You want to be able to have a key to lock.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think it's kind of nice to be able to have a window to the outside
Uh-huh.
so you can get some fresh air. Otherwise, it might get a little stuffy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but everywhere I stayed, the reviews and the pictures were good indicators of the place I actually stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't, every place I stayed, see, I did have one minor disappointment in Vietnam, but it's a place. It was arrangement that I made at the last minute,
Uh-huh.
and also it was still really, really, really inexpensive, so it was okay.
Uh-huh. So you got
Hmm.
your like a separate room in this hostel?
Yeah. Uh
Uh,
huh.
uh-huh.
Yeah. The hostel was great. It was a place called A Maze in Uwe.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of done up in a Japanese style.
Mm-hmm.
The most of the rooms were in a hallway, and there were three rooms on either side of the hallway.
Uh-huh.
Um, I mean, the only slight complaint there, which is always going to be a complaint at hostels, I think, is you're kind of sleeping on top of each other, not literally, but
Mhm.
um, you can hear. I mean, you got six people sleeping on up and down in one hallway.
Uh-huh.
So anytime someone coughs or sneezes in the middle of the night, or
Mhm.
if they have to get up and go to the bathroom,
Mhm.
you hear that. But it's okay. There are posted rules,
Mhm.
and there are people who work at the hostel full time.
Uh-huh.
So it's. I mean, I think you know pretty much right when you walk in what the hostel is going to be like.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. Hopefully, it's going to be just like I said earlier. Hopefully, it's going to be just like the reviews and the pictures. Every now and then, it might not be, and you're never going to be 100% right on these.
Uh-huh.
But I was very fortunate. Every place I went to was great.
Uh-huh.
The people were really nice. Every place I went to, I had a free breakfast, which was really nice
Uh-huh.
and very good. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then, Scott, was it like hot or was it raining?
Yeah. See, I got there, when I got to Vietnam, it was um, beginning of winter in the northern hemisphere.
Mhm.
But Vietnam is south. It's very close to the equator.
Uh-huh.
So it was a bit rainy up north, and when I got there was late January.
Uh-huh.
So I landed late January, but I landed in the southern part of the country. It was really quite warm in the
Warm.
southern part. Uh, say 30 is consistently between 20 and 30 degrees and
Uh-huh.
sunny.
Uh-huh.
When I went up to Hue, Hue is more central. Um, I did have over the course of 2 weeks in Hue, I did have um, two stretches of cold, rainy weather,
Uh-huh.
and it's interesting when it's cold and rainy. You look at people and you just call it a down day, or
Uh-huh.
I try and go to museums and art galleries.
Uh-huh.
And at the end of that, I was fine with Vietnam has a very lovely cafe culture because of the
Mhm.
French.
Mhm.
So on not just it's not only every street corner, but like on three, every street corner probably has three cafes.
Uh-huh.
And they have great coffee. So you just go in, get a coffee, sit down, and read. And
Uh-huh.
it's very abundant. This kind of culture in Vietnam.
Uh-huh.
Everyone goes in. The big difference between Vietnam and doing that in the United States is that you're allowed to smoke cigarettes in indoors in restaurants in Vietnam, and you're not allowed in most of North America. You're not allowed to smoke indoors now.
Mhm.
So it's interesting going in a cafe, ordering a big coffee, and sitting there smoking and reading. It's a very interesting experience. You one can't. I don't want to say share or enjoy
Mhm.
because it's against law in the U.S.
Uh-huh.
But it's interesting being able to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't
Uh-huh.
know. I think you asked me a question I might not have answered there, Sanji.
No, no, it's okay. Like, and yeah, the accommodation and so what are the best months to travel to Vietnam?
The what?
Best months to travel to Vietnam?
Oh, I think if you're going to Vietnam right now, I mean the South,
Uh-huh.
uh, because yeah, if you go to southern Vietnam in the summertime, it might be it's going to be really hot because it's
Hot.
very hot and it's very humid.
Mhm.
Um, So if that kind of weather bothers you, then I don't recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, but the summer months, which would be in North America, June, July, August, might be really nice up in the northern areas just below China,
Uh-huh.
like Sapa and Hanoi. I
Mm-hmm.
hear it's really, really beautiful up there. I think you want to avoid the months of maybe um, November and December, possibly, because I think that's when a lot of the typhoon season is
Typhoon.
there.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Wow.
And so there will be a lot of rains. And you know, it's when it rains in Vietnam, it's intense. It just doesn't
Uh-huh.
stop. You're just gonna get
Uh-huh.
wet.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
So it's like kind of like January to March. These are like the good times, like the.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
And then later
Definitely.
it becomes summer, and then it becomes very hot also, right?
Then it becomes very hot. Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
then yeah, you might want to be further north. But I think your ideal times are definitely February, March, April in most of Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then where were the places you mentioned? Like you went to art galleries, museums, these kind of places, no? So you mentioned
Yeah.
one city. What are the places you visited, Scott?
No, I did. Well, I spent the most amount of time that I was there in one city called I keep on talking about called Hue,
Uh-huh.
and Hue is not on everyone's even top five list for Vietnam,
Uh-huh.
but there are a lot of art galleries there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember any the art galleries I went to, and a lot of them because you go to some cities, and they'll just have like the street where the art galleries are.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just go into art gallery one and art gallery two, and just kind of stroll through them and check them out and see what they're like, and that's always nice. But also, there are a lot of Hue is built kind of on and around an old city.
Mm-hmm.
It was built up to accommodate the royal family from Vietnam,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's an old part of Hue that is kind of delineated by really big. It's an old city,
Mm-hmm.
big walls that are about. They're not big tall. There might be 20 feet tall, but they're about 40 feet thick.
Uh-huh.
And they were built, to protect from invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And these cities are really cool. They have great museums, so you get to go in, you get to see what the imperial palace was like, and that imperial palace was built in 1800, and it's
Uh-huh.
fascinating to walk around there. You get to see dishes and beds and clothing and everything that the family wore.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a long, long time ago, 1800. That's
Mm-hmm.
220 some odd 220 years ago.
What are the other cities you visited?
I did spend. There was a moment when I was getting very tired of getting wet in Hue.
Uh-huh.
So I took a bus to see Da Nang, which a bus is 2.5 hours south,
Uh-huh.
and it only cost. I don't think it cost much more than $10
Mm-hmm.
to get to Da Nang, and Da Nang is very nice. It's next to another older city. It's right. It's called Hoi An.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in retrospect, I personally would have preferred Hoi An because it's a lot like Hue. It's an older city, it has a lot more of the older architecture,
Mm-hmm.
and it's more vibrant. It's much more arts oriented and history and culture orientation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Da Nang It's a big city built up right on the ocean. So you have a bunch of really big, tall hotels and and restaurants. That you have a city that's built to accommodate that culture of people going to the coast to get away for a holiday. And you see a lot. I mean, you see a lot more Asian tourists in Da Nang, and you see a lot more Japanese and a lot more Koreans
Mm-hmm.
than other places in Korea. I mean, sorry, in Vietnam.
Vietnam. And did you travel
And
to the?
then,
Sorry. Yeah, please.
yeah, no, Da Nang was great. I was there for 3 days, and I went to Da Nang because I was getting tired of being bombarded by rain in
Right.
Hue.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept my hostel. I took a bus down to Da Nang, spent 3 days there, and then went back to Da Nang. I went back to Hue,
Mm-hmm.
and then from Hue, my one big trip was down to an island called Pha Quoc.
Mm-hmm.
And Pha Quoc is in the Bay of Thailand, and
Mm-hmm.
it's actually closer to Cambodia.
Mm-hmm.
But it is considered Vietnam, and it's an island, and it's lovely, and it's really being heavily developed now.
Uh-huh.
So there are a lot of resorts, a lot of things like that. But I did find a good spot on a beach.
Mm-hmm.
I did rent a scooter in Pha Quoc, and it's also it's you do have to plan that one
Mm-hmm.
because the ferries cost. Uh, but it's not the cost. The ferries are relatively inexpensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the uh, the travel time is significant. The fastest ferry is an hour and a half. The slowest ferries can be 4 hours.
Uh-huh.
So it's just something you have to take into accommodation.
Mm-hmm. Did you travel to the
But
northern side also?
no, no, I didn't go north at all. I
Mhm.
was in I was in Vietnam during Tet, the Lunar New Year,
Uh-huh.
and that's not a good time to try and travel.
Uh-huh.
I my original plan was to land in Hanoi
Mm-hmm.
and then take trains all the way down south.
Uh-huh.
But well, one error I made, I didn't make, I didn't plan accordingly for, I didn't have my visa.
Uh-huh.
You need your visa before you get to Vietnam. It says it's okay if you land, you can get it.
Mm-hmm.
You can get your visa in Vietnam after you land.
Visa on
However,
arrival, right?
you can,
Mm-hmm.
but in the U.S., they won't even let you board an airplane without your visa now.
Uh-huh.
So I had to adjust my travel a little bit because I did not have that visa,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had to rearrange travel for when I received my visa, and that was aggravating and a little expensive. But do make sure you have your visa before you leave if you're going to Vietnam, and but once you get there, it's traveling isn't a problem. Um, nobody looked asked to look at my visa ever. Every hotel you go to, they do have to take a picture of your visa
Mm-hmm.
uh, for all guests. So I did go to Phu Quoc. It is a lovely island. The weather was very nice. The water off the coast was great. The food was fantastic. A lot of very fresh. All your food is very fresh in Phu
Mm-hmm.
Quoc. My only minor complaint, which shouldn't be a complaint, is that I did spend more time with tourists in Phu Quoc than I did in my other spots.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't really the goal of my trip. I wanted to learn or see what local culture is like as much as possible in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the tourists that I met were all fantastic. They're all lovely, very nice people, and honestly, they're all trying to justify why they're not living in Vietnam
Oh,
because it
really?
is lovely, it is inexpensive,
Uh-huh.
very accommodating, and it's just a great trip.
Uh-huh. So,
Mhm.
uh, how about the food? You said many
The food's
times it was very
fantastic.
fantastic, right?
The
So,
food is so good, Sanji. Uh, it's largely, I can't attribute it all to French culture
mhm,
uh, um, because, and that's just something that was fascinating. The extent to which French influences on food there still exist today. Like you
uh-huh,
still like the real common thing. One of the most common meals in Vietnam is called a banh mi, which is a sandwich, right? And it's a
uh-huh,
sandwich made out of half baguette, and a baguette is a French thing,
uh-huh,
And not just that, but the baguette, the banh mi has butter on one side and then pate on the other. And
mhm,
pate is something you make from pork liver.
uh-huh,
And to see that sandwich become such a staple
uh-huh,
um, in Vietnam just really made me happy. But
mhm,
what it means more is you see that integration of two different cultures in food,
uh-huh,
and I like seeing that because you see the French in the pate and the butter and the bread, but
mhm,
then every other part of it, the way the pork is roasted or cooked, and the pickled vegetables because you also have pickled carrots and
mhm,
daikon radish, and then really intense heat. So you're going to have the peppers and then the
uh-huh,
cilantro, which are just through and through Vietnam.
uh-huh,
And no, Vietnamese food is fantastic. You have a lot more heat than you see in a lot of cultures. You see it a little bit in Thailand food too,
mhm,
but also the freshness. Um, the before even before French culture came along, um, royal kitchens wanted, the kings and queens wanted different food every day.
uh-huh,
Okay.
uh-huh,
So it wasn't like there was a menu to choose from that was the same every week. Every day they had something very different.
mhm,
So when you combine that with the French, uh, what you don't have a food culture that is developed on ways of storing food and keeping it good.
mhm,
Pretty much everything that's cooked at the end of the day is either given to homeless or thrown out.
uh-huh,
And the next day you're starting fresh. Everything is fresh from the markets,
mhm,
whether it's meats or vegetables or fruits. Everything comes in fresh from the market
mhm,
and starts, and it's just um, fantastic. Every bit of it. It was very disappointing coming back to
mhm.
American food because
Really?
it's just nowhere. It doesn't. It's funny, because people look at Vietnam and call it a poor country,
Uh-huh,
which is just something that's hard for me to make sense of when
uh-huh,
I eat so much better in Vietnam than I do in the U.S. My
uh-huh.
food, the food is so much better there.
You mean health-wise also?
Yeah.
Uh, and you sometimes hear like this region is like, so can vegetarians also survive in those regions?
Yeah, yeah, they have vegan spots and vegetarian. I
Uh-huh,
mean, I think maybe it might be easier to be a pescatarian
uh-huh,
because uh, while I did see restaurants that were vegetarian, and Buddhists are the predominant religion in
mhm,
Vietnam as well. So there's got to there's got to be
Mm-hmm.
you got to have food for the Buddhists, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
just asking. Yeah. So, yeah, some people like
yeah,
they prefer, and then so Scott, like I remember when I talked to you also one time you had a stomach problem, no? And
yeah.
how was like the sickness and the medicines? You told like you went to see a doctor and it was quite very reasonable and everything. And
Hmm. Yeah, like the stomach problem was just one of those problems that most people are going to have when they go to a
Mhm,
new country, right?
mhm,
Because you have a whole bunch of stuff that your
mhm,
gut's not really used to preparing for.
mhm.
But what I've found in Vietnam, and Vietnam has this, every whether the convenience stores or grocery stores, they have local yogurt.
A yoga.
You know, and it isn't just local yogurts. Even convenience stores have small servings of probiotics,
Uh-huh.
and you want to eat local yogurts and local probiotics as much as possible. I
Mhm.
mean, if and also eating like the pickled vegetables that helps,
Uh-huh.
and all I'd say honestly every day have a serving of a local yogurt
Uh-huh.
because that will help your stomach have the digestive enzymes
Mhm.
that are best when you're eating local food.
Uh-huh.
It's just, I mean, not everyone is going to have that problem,
Mhm.
but it's more likely that you're going to have the problem than not going to have the problem
Mhm.
because, it's a different part of the world and they have
Yeah.
different things in their food than we do.
Uh-huh. Oh, I
And
could
it's not
not.
going to kill you. It's just
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
make you, you're just going to have diarrhea for a day. That's
Uh-huh.
it.
Only that. No, no fever, none of that, right?
I know I didn't really have a fever, but just don't push it too much.
Mhm.
And that's one thing I liked about traveling alone.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes I'd be walking in one direction, I'd stop, I'd think, and I'd turn around and start walking in the other direction.
Uh-huh.
And if someone was with me, that'd make them crazy. They'd be like, go crazy, like stop changing directions. But sometimes I change my mind and I
Uh-huh.
want to go that way instead of that way. You know, and that's also, I a lot of my close personal friends would prefer to have everything planned and
Mhm.
no downtime.
Mhm.
But I like having those moments when you have a choice of three or four different things you want to do,
Mhm.
and all these things you just learned about that day.
Mhm.
That's what really makes traveling fun in my mind.
Mhm. And then, what were the do's and the do nots?
Oh, you know, um, there. I guess there are a lot of ways to answer that question. Like when it comes to eating, do's and do nots. Like if you're eating at a restaurant, eat at busy restaurants.
Mhm.
Don't go to restaurants that are slow ever.
Mhm.
Don't ever get like because if they're busy, that means that they're not having food sit out for a long period of time.
Mhm.
Once they get food, they're cooking it, they're serving it.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, many times I went to restaurants
Mhm.
where they didn't try. They didn't go out of their way to try and accommodate me or take care of me.
Mhm.
They're just like you have to you kind of have to earn your place at the table.
Uh-huh.
Like like one restaurant, I was the only white person there,
Uh-huh.
but it's very very full of Vietnamese families. It was
Mhm.
a very popular breakfast place. The people who owned it and the servers didn't speak English,
Uh-huh.
so I was a liability. If they were going to talk to me, it'd take
Uh,
them too much time, and they
uh-huh.
didn't have to. They were so
You
busy.
see.
They didn't have to accommodate me, and but
Uh-huh.
I was very determined. I was going to eat in this restaurant.
Uh-huh.
So and Vietnamese they don't really respect that idea of waiting in line.
Uh-huh.
Waiting in line, that they won't if they can avoid it. So
Uh-huh.
I was when I got to this restaurant, I was waiting at the door for a table to empty, and then the host or the waiter to point to me and say, "Sit down at this table."
Mhm.
That never happened.
Mhm.
I had to wait for a table for a family to get up and then run and grab a
Uh-huh.
chair. And it was one a place that has the small chairs and the small tables. So I'm
Mhm.
sitting like this and waiting because there's not a menu either. And
Mhm.
finally, a really nice family next to me grabbed a waiter and told him they ordered for me, and that
Uh-huh.
was kind of an odd experience.
Mhm.
But yeah, things you do and things you don't do. Whenever you travel, be aware of the laws and don't break local laws. That's really
Mhm.
important.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to feel bad for someone who gets in trouble for breaking a local law.
Okay.
You always need to be aware of what local laws are,
Mm.
or just
Do your
for no
research,
other
right?
reason than,
Do your
yeah, do your
research.
research and be respectful.
Sure.
Do your research and be respectful. Like anyone who goes to another country and expects everything to be like their country, they're just
Mhm.
being foolish.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so do your research and be respectful of the local
Uh-huh.
laws. Hmm.
So, I remember when talking to you, like it was like many mixed emotions and all when you were like trying to come back, no, to the States and all.
Hmm.
So, what was it like? I just had a glimpse of it, or just I had it like a message.
Oh, you're taking notes? Yeah.
No, no, like you just messaged, no, like when you were there,
Hmm.
and then like when you were going to come back, what were the feelings, or how were you thinking about it? Uh, how did you feel about it?
It was hard. I mean, it was hard being there to begin with
Mhm.
because it a lot of countries make allowances, right? Because English is one of the English might be the most common travel language around the world, I'm guessing.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't want to
Yeah, sure.
give it any unnecessary kudos or
Uh-huh.
applauds, but that doesn't mean though just because English is the language that most tourists are using, and in Vietnam, Americans aren't the biggest tourists there. I
Mhm.
think it's between the Russians are big,
Mhm.
Vietnamese. I mean, not Vietnamese. Koreans are big travelers. Then all of Europe likes to go to Vietnam too.
Mhm.
But the English, a little bit, a lot of Australians were there though. I did see a
Mhm.
lot of Australians.
Mhm.
Um, but I guess my whole point in this is when we look for landmarks, and I don't necessarily mean that building or just anything that we can relate to that lets us know I'm close to where I'm sleeping.
Mhm.
Um, when you're in a new country, that's hard, especially when uh, the language is different, and with Vietnamese, because of the French, they have an alphabet that's very similar to an English alphabet.
Mhm.
It's still, the words are spelled in ways that are quite different and foreign. It's not a Romance language at all,
Mhm.
and Vietnamese. So, and yeah, I'm going a very, very roundabout way of trying to answer a question you asked me.
Mhm.
When you do go on these big trips by yourself, there are moments that are emotionally testing. You don't know anyone well, really. You don't know locals. The food is different. Everything is very foreign and different,
Mhm.
and that does take a bit of a mental a toll on you.
Mhm.
And then what's interesting is because I remember being very conscious of that, and how I kind of missed home and missed being
Really?
back in the
In the first part.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
But then readjusting the things when I get back home has
Mhm,
been very difficult too.
mhm, mhm.
And I don't really have any answers for that one. You know,
Uh-huh.
like I did really enjoy having very fresh, very reasonable food from people who weren't caught up with a lot of what it seems to me a lot of the crap and BS that's happening in the U.S. right now.
Uh-huh.
It was very refreshing and very enjoyable,
Mhm,
really,
mhm.
not
So
being away.
uh-huh. So unless like those two times, because there can be bad people anywhere, no, in any country.
Mhm.
Unless that taxi incidents, you didn't encounter anything like scammers or
Oh, there are always going to be scammers, right?
yeah, no, any place it can have, right?
And anytime you're buying something, you got to be aware.
Uh-huh.
Like I went to one of the big markets in Ho Chi Minh City,
Mm-hmm.
and this market is so big. I'm trying to look for something here that could give you an idea, just for reference sake.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just when you look, it just goes on and on and on. This market, anyway. I
Really?
was thinking about buying a pair of shoes,
Uh-huh.
and this pair of shoes I was looking at in the U.S. is relatively expensive for a pair of tennis shoes. I think they were asking $100 about, which in the U.S. is not expensive, but in Vietnam it's very, very expensive for a pair of
Uh-huh.
shoes. So I
Uh-huh.
asked them. I said, "Are these real? Are these authentic?" And they're telling me, "Yes, they are. Yes, they are."
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking about buying it, but then I was like thinking, no, they're not real. I know they're not real.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I let her tell me they are and even kind of believe her? And then all of a sudden they saw this click in my mind.
Uh-huh.
She said, "How much are you willing to pay?" She was asking for 2.5 million dong. And I
Mm-hmm.
looked at her and I said, $1 million. And she's like, no, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
She said 2.2 million. I said,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm staying at $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't, I ended up leaving and not buying shoes, but she got mad at me.
Mm-hmm.
And, and so I guess, so there's always going to be the scam,
Sure,
you
sure.
know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to go on a trip and not be scammed at least once.
Yeah.
It's like having a barbecue, right? I don't know if you've ever grilled a barbecue or barbecued a meal. When you're cooking a meal on a grill or barbecue, you're always going to have at least one piece of food fall through the grates and go
Uh-huh.
into the fire, and that's your offering to the barbecue gods, right? It's always going to happen, and you just accept it. You don't get
Uh-huh.
mad. I
Uh-huh.
think when you travel, you're going to be scammed at some point,
Uh-huh.
and it's unfortunate. And you can prepare yourself mentally, like when you're taking a taxi. You know where you're where you're going, and you tell the person you're in a taxi with. You ask them up front,
Mm-hmm.
like, how much is it? Lock in a price.
Mm-hmm.
Just remove any variability away from the that price concept. Try and lock into your cost right away.
Mm-hmm.
But you will get scammed. You just hope that it's not too bad, and just like say, okay, that's for the scamming gods. Okay, are we good? Are we good? And then you move on. So
And
hopefully it
Scott,
doesn't happen
there's
again.
always been like countries like a local price and a foreigner price, no?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no, that is a thing,
I
no?
think
Like,
so. And
uh-huh.
and then and when you go to markets, you try and be respectful
Mhm.
because um, yeah, Vietnamese live on about $6 a day is what their earnings are.
Mm-hmm.
And, typical US, I don't know what our typical earnings are, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot more than $6 a day.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want to take things like this in consideration. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's okay to give them a little bit more
Sure, sure.
than they would be paying. I don't think that's out of the question.
Mm-hmm. And where did you exchange the money and all? Because all was done in like their currency, right?
Mhm.
All these payments were done in. So
Yeah.
time to time you visited the bank or took it from like
Yes.
ATM machine or something.
Sometimes. Yeah, I went to ATM machines a lot. I, I think there's probably some good research to be done there.
Mm-hmm.
You could go through the whole ATM process, and right when you get to the end, they tell you what your conversion rate is. You
Mm-hmm.
can wait for that and then not get the money
Mm-hmm.
and then not be food because the conversion rate isn't always the same.
Oh,
And then in Vietnam, only there weren't many banks. It seemed it wasn't always that easy getting money converted. Once you kind of know, like jewelry stores are always going to be able to convert money for
oh,
you. Uh, but I did go to some banks that wouldn't convert. Yeah, it
mm-hmm.
was, and I didn't understand, and it made me mad. But what are you going to
Mm-hmm.
do? Hmm.
Mm-hmm. So overall, what do you think about the whole journey?
Oh, it was fantastic.
Uh-huh.
I, uh, I really really loved Vietnam. I met a guy in when I was on the island. One of the tourists. I met a fellow. His name was Dave. He's
Mm-hmm.
66.
Mm-hmm.
He's there with his partner Wendy. Wendy's Chinese. She's from Hong Kong, but grew up in England,
Uh-huh.
and they've been together for a long time. They spend 6 months out of the year in Goa, in India,
Wow. Uh-huh.
where they take care of an orphanage there.
Wow.
And then they spend the other 6 months out of the year in Southeast Asia,
Mm-hmm.
between Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't, they get a combined 2,000 pounds a month from the English government
Mm-hmm.
for retirement, and that's more than enough for them to live.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And yeah, this lifestyle where again, they're taking care of an orphanage in Goa
Yeah.
six
No?
months a year,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other 6 months they're in Southeast Asia, and
Uh-huh.
they're really happy,
Yeah. No?
and they really enjoy it. So it's Vietnam is a beautiful city. The people are lovely. The food is amazing. It
Mm-hmm.
is growing very fast right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see things like this, I consider a tremendous value.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't see it always being a tremendous value.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice if it was, but I don't know. It's like, will big business take that over somehow?
Mm-hmm.
And it might.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, it's a lovely place and it's good value. And I think Cambodia is probably even a better value
Mm-hmm.
because from what I understand, they haven't had that. Like Vietnam is largely industrialized now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Cambodia is. You
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of industrial production going on in Vietnam. I don't think you do so much in Laos or Cambodia.
Uh-huh.
So you will see and continue to see really good travel deals in these
Mm-hmm.
areas for a while.
And after you came back, what did you do to adjust back to your surroundings?
I'm very fortunate, Sanjay. I live with my mom, and she has a hot tub down at the end of the street. And so the first thing I did, though, was I took a very, very hot shower because
Uh-huh.
I've been traveling. I did have a 12-hour layover in San Francisco that was long.
Uh-huh.
Um, so the first thing I did was took a very, very hot shower. Then I went and hopped in my mom's hot tub
Mhm.
and just relaxed. And then it's been just over 2 weeks,
Mhm.
but I'm still trying to mentally get back into this idea of being in the United States and Western world.
Uh-huh.
Although I do really love and miss Vietnam quite a bit.
And surely you'll
So,
be back, no? At some point.
yeah, I'll be back.
Uh-huh.
I was trying to see if there's a way I could spend a week and come out and see you,
Ha 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 ha.
but I just thought that'd be a little bit more chaos than we needed in our life. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, shall we do a little bit of meditation and wrap it up for today?
Yeah, I think that's great. Uh-huh.
You could do for a long time also, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh. So Scott, have some water. If you want to stretch out, please do so. Maybe 10 to 15 minutes you can do, right?
Yeah, we can.
Uh,
I'm open. It's getting late for you, I know.
uh-huh. So, okay. So then please sit comfortably
Mhm.
in a posture of your liking.
Yes.
And then we try to relax as much as possible. You can slowly move your head, your shoulders, even your elbows, and even you can shake your hands if needed, and just like loosen up. And even how your knees are placed. Just see whether you're sitting comfortably, how your knees are placed, and then the lower part of the leg, and even the touch of the surface, no, where your feet are resting, maybe on shoes or the surface or a carpet, doesn't matter. And just see. And take a few deep breaths from the nostrils and let the air come into your lungs and let it be there for some time and then slowly release from the mouth. This is a very easy way of relaxation. And we'll do a week by week follow up of the meditation practice also, like we are doing in other programs. So for today, I'll reintroduce like loving kindness meditation as well as breath meditation, which are like two. They are two parts themselves, but they are really equally helpful and very simple also. So first, we'll do some relaxation. Uh, Slowly move your attention to the upper part of your head, the scalp region, and just see whether you can let go of any kind of excess effort or even any tension. Just by putting your attention that to that region also, we can let go of any kind of even excess effort and move to your you even the attention starts changing things. Then slowly move to your forehead region and then try to stretch out all those thinking lines on the forehead. Then slowly moving down to your eyebrows. Let them drop to either side of the body. Move slowly to the eyes. Since we have closed eyes, let the eyes Just think of a time you are in deep sleep. Let them drop to any side they wish. We're just using our mind. They move down along your nose. You might feel the breath. And then check on the teeth and the tongue also. Because when you are tense, our teeth and the tongue sometimes are tight against the teeth can be tight against each other, and the tongue also can be stuck somewhere. Then slowly moving down to your throat region, front part of the neck, back part of the neck. If you want to do slight adjustments, you feel more balanced and even comfortable. Then slowly move to your shoulders. If you want, just drop your arms on either side of the body or right in front of you. Since you are seated on a chair, just let them drop to either side of your body and let them touch any surface as if they were made of rubber or it was like sleeves of a jacket. Just let them hang with minimum effort. Then what happens is surely the shoulders get very relaxed. Then slowly moving down to your chest region, abdomen. Sometimes slight adjustments make it very comfortable. Later it's like you are under the shower, like you said you took a hot shower, no? Likewise, with the bare attention, also things start changing. Later in different podcasts and all, we can talk about this specifically. Then slowly the upper back, lower back, let them rest. Feel the touch of maybe the chair or the fabric of your clothing in specific when you are mentioning the specific area. And then select one of your arms. Let them just hang. And then it's like you are squeezing out any kind of excess tension or pressure from the upper part of the arm, from the shoulder to the elbow. And then from the elbow slowly downwards, right up to the wrist in one arm. And then from the wrist all the way, feel the touch of the fingers touching, maybe moving, and even the palm of that specific hand. And let it loose even more. It could be lighter, it could be heavier, but loosen it up or let it go. And then select the opposite arm also. From the shoulder to the elbow, elbow to the wrist, and all the way right up to the fingertips of that specific hand. So the whole upper body we try to relax, just like the upper body, just see whether you're seated comfortably. And then, if you need, do slight adjustments. And then the upper part of the leg, select one of the legs, just like the arm, the upper part, the knee, the middle part of the leg, and then from the ankle downwards, right up to your toes, and feel the soles of your foot or the sole of your foot touching the surface. Be very present. And do the same to the opposite leg also. The upper part of the leg, the knee, the middle part of the leg, all the way to the ankle, from the ankle right up to the toes. So the whole body try to relax. And later, when you're practicing by yourself, you can do a few cycles of this, even more until you feel quite relaxed, like you are in that bathtub. More you submerge in these things, like more relaxed you become. And then slowly move your attention to your heart region. You might feel the heartbeat. And just stay there for a little while and just feel how it's to be like without doing anything at all. Just relax in there. Just rest and relax. And you will know you are in the present moment. And you can leave the past aside, you can leave the future aside. And it's very comfortable without expectations or past incidents or all that. You can just leave it aside for now. And just see how it feels. This is like our inner chamber. You can free it from all the other external things. And we know everything happens within the range of our body. Now, if you want, you can slowly move your hands into a position you really like or really feel comfortable. Some people like to rest their hands on maybe their knees, or just see how it goes for you. Some people like to place it like in those statues and all on their lap. Or you can have very simple posture. So idea is to have everything connected. Now let's take ourselves as the meditation object. This is called loving kindness meditation. It's very soothing, it's very nice, and it's the opposite of this agitation, irritation, all these kind of negative things. So take yourself as the meditation object, and with your mind say to yourself, may I be free from anger. Or you can add anything, irritation, agitation, anything that bothers you, even tiredness. Then, number two, may I be free from mental pain. May I be free from physical pain. May I live happily and peacefully. May I be free from anger or anything that's bothering you now. Then, may I be free from mental pain. May I be free from physical pain. May I live happily and peacefully. May I live happily and peacefully. Let's practice this by ourselves for a short time. May I be free from anger. May I be free from mental pain. May I be free from physical pain. May I live happily and peacefully. Usually, you can practice this like 2 times a day, one time in the morning, one time in the evening. Do the relaxation. And now, slowly take your attention to the breath from the tip of your nose. to the upper lip region. You do it in a very relaxed way because we are always breathing, no? Unless there's some difficulty, the breathing always happens. So it's very easy. We just have to put our attention to that flow only, like looking at a stream, looking at a river or the beach. When you go to the beach, you look at the waves that come and go, right? So likewise, we do it in a very relaxed way. Don't stress yourself, don't point your eyes towards that direction. None of it's required. Just the inflow and the outflow. Just put your attention there. And if you need, you can use like inhale, exhale, or any word of your preference, like two words of your preference. In breath, out breath, or breathing in, breathing out. Some people use like breathing in life or energy, breathing out peace. Let's practice this by ourselves for a short time. Doesn't matter how much your mind wanders or anything, doesn't matter. Just let it gently back to the meditation object. We are not forcing it or anything. Do it in a very gentle and a relaxed way. You can rest in this. All these meditations, you can, because it's very much less than the ordinary things we do. So, with the touch of reminder about the meditation practices, slowly bring your attention to your eyes, and you can slowly open your eyes. If you want, slowly move your fingers or the toes, even the body slightly. You can slowly adjust. So, please, if possible, practice like 2 times per day, maybe 5 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes. One relaxation, loving kindness, and then breath. In the evening, also, relaxation. loving kindness, breath, they work very nicely together, the sequence or the pattern, but it's not forced or anything. Yeah. So one is like to cure or like cool things down. The other thing is like to elevate your mind, make it strong, stable. Lot of things can happen. So both they are like highways themselves, but this is like the specs of starting the journey. Or like if you just make a regular practice, just like drinking a glass of water, or sometimes we just stay and like half an hour is already gone, right? So here maybe 15 minutes, it can do tons of good physically, mentally. Or so I just did a small reminder for today. Uh, but let's like take it week by week even, and we'll just discuss about meditation also. And thank you so much, Scott, and for sharing your experience. It was wonderful, and I'm sure like many people, even young people who would like to travel, uh, because everybody's interested. And then on like channels also there are travelers and people, but some people are commercialized and all.
Mm.
But if a person really went there and like had a journey like you, it will be very nice to know from a person like that. So hopefully it will help many people, even myself, no, who wants to travel. So and then and hopefully Scott will meet up with a beautiful topic. Uh, Hopefully next week or soon as
Yes,
possible.
we will.
And
Uh,
thank you so much for sharing the journey, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Sanji. I appreciate the guided meditation. It's good to see you as usual. And I
Uh-huh.
hope you have a fantastic week.
Uh-huh. Thank you so much, Scott, and have a great, wonderful day and a wonderful week.
All right. You too.
See you
Uh,
soon. Yeah,
I'll be in touch soon.
sure,
Yes.
sure.
All right.